Hi, Scary Recaps here. Today, I'm going to explain the movie Hush from 2016. Beware of spoilers. The film begins with a young woman named Maddie Young who is deaf and mute. She lives alone in a cabin in the woods. Maddie is a writer and an author of the newly published book titled Midnight Mass. A neighbor friend, Sarah, comes to visit her and tells her that she has finished reading Maddie's book. She praises her writing style and narrative skills. Maddie tells her that despite the voice she is hearing inside her head, that she is trying to be a good writer. Suddenly, the fire alarm goes off due to the burnt food in the oven, and Maddie, pointed at by Sarah, rushes in to shut it off. After the two women sit together on the porch discussing about Maddie's cat, whose name is Bitch, and the unsuccessful dinner, Sarah suggests ordering food, but Maddie says that she is too busy. Sarah then leaves, and Maddie walks into the house. Through a glimpse at the back of the book, it is revealed that Maddie, after contracting bacterial meningitis at the age of 13, suffered hearing loss and temporary vocal paralysis. Complications in surgery later caused her permanent speech and hearing loss. During the night, Maddie works on her new book, but she can't concentrate. Instead, she decides to clean the kitchen. Suddenly, a frightened Sarah appears in the window behind her, crying for help. She begs Maddie to let her in, but Maddie doesn't notice her at all. Soon, a masked man comes and grabs Sarah and stabs her to death. The killer becomes aware of Maddie's inability to hear and makes up his mind to play with her as well. He sneaks into her house and watches her as she video chats with a friend. Later on, Maddie searches for her cat, which seems to have gone missing. Returning to her laptop, Maddie discovers photos of herself taken with her mobile phone inside the house. She realizes that someone has broken in and finds out that the front door is open. She goes to close it and sees the masked man with a crossbow on his back, standing on the porch and holding her mobile phone. Maddie runs and locks the door just in time, keeping the killer outside. Maddie is scared watching the masked man walking around, taunting her. She tries to call the police, but the killer cuts off the power and shows her his bloody knife. He then goes and punctures the tires of her car, preventing her from any attempts of escape. Maddie starts to panic and writes, "Won't tell, didn't see face, boyfriend coming home," on the glass of the front entrance. The killer reads the message and takes off his mask just as Maddie is shining a light on him. He tells her that he will get in and kill her. Maddie doesn't know what to do and guards the house, going room to room. The stranger picks up Sarah's dead body and uses it to claw at the window, trying to break Maddie's will. Soon, Maddie comes up with the idea of using her car keys in order to distract the killer. The car alarm goes off, and the stranger runs to disable the alarm. In the meantime, Maddie searches Sarah's corpse, looking for her mobile phone. She fails as the killer comes running towards her. Maddie tries to close the window, but the killer puts his hands in and prevents her. Maddie grabs a hammer and injures the man in his right arm. He backs away, and Maddie locks the window. The killer then treats his wound in front of her and taunts her again by showing the mobile phone. Maddie seeks other ways to save herself, but the killer is patrolling the house. Playing this deadly game of cat and mouse, Maddie attempts to escape through another window on the roof, but the killer shoots her in the leg with a crossbow bolt. Maddie pulls out the bolt and knocks the killer off the roof. She grabs his crossbow and aims it at him, but he manages to hide. Maddie then treats her wound in the bathroom. Afterwards, she tries to put a bolt in the crossbow while the killer watches her through the window. Sarah's boyfriend, John, comes then to Maddie's house. The killer becomes aware of that and goes to him, posing as a police officer. He tells him that he has just been assigned to the area and asks for his mobile phone to call the local sheriff. John complies and sits with him, discussing about Maddie. But after the killer drops an earring he got from Sarah as a trophy, John grows suspicious of him. He takes a stone and plans to kill the stranger. While they're talking, John walks to him and readies himself to strike him with the stone. But then Maddie bangs on the window and distracts John, allowing the killer to stab him in the neck. He stabs him behind the knee as well, and John falls down. The killer stoops to see if he's dead, and John grabs him and holds him. He tries to choke him, telling Maddie to run and save herself. Maddie reads his lips and goes to the door, but before she opens it, she runs in her head all the possible scenarios and outcomes of what will happen if she steps out of the house. In each one, she ends up dead. Meanwhile, the killer does the same thing, thinking what her next move is going to be. He knows that she is injured, so she doesn't have many options. Maddie's cat, Bitch, appears then, and the killer kneels to pet it. Suddenly, a crossbow bolt hits him in the shoulder. He plucks out the bolt and goes after the limping Maddie, who drops a bolt on the threshold. She tries to get it, but the killer slams the door on her wrist and crushes her hand under his boot. He then allows her to retreat inside the house and tells her that he will get inside and kill her. Maddie writes, "Do it, coward," on the glass, using her own blood. The killer walks away and returns with a tire iron. He begins to bash the door while Maddie writes on her laptop a description of the killer and a final few words for her family. She then goes and locks herself in the bathroom, waiting for him with a knife in her hand. The killer, however, enters the bathroom from the window behind her, and Maddie doesn't notice him. He whispers something, and Maddie feels his breath against her neck. Just as he is about to stab her in the neck, Maddie avoids his blade and stabs him in the knee. She goes to the kitchen, and the killer follows her. Maddie sprays insecticide in his eyes and uses a visual smoke alarm to confuse him. The killer attacks her and throws her to the floor. He kicks her several times and then starts to strangle her. Maddie is helpless. Her life is flashing before her eyes. She knows she is going to die, yet, at the last moment, she grabs a corkscrew and stabs the killer in the neck, ultimately killing him. Maddie, barely conscious, starts to breathe again. She takes her mobile phone and calls the police. A few moments later, Maddie is seen sitting on the porch, petting her cat. As a police car stops outside her house, Maddie closes her eyes and smiles.